Hi, my name is Ken Lasseson. I wrote the Microbiome prescription website, and today I'm basically trying to show a user how to answer a question he asked. He has done a series of samples, and something he noticed was that the suggestions from his latest samples and the suggestions from his last sample seem to diverge quite a bit. There are reasons for that, which I'll talk to later, but first I want to show how you can find out what is whether or not there's convergence or not convergence. So I ended up in the linked blog post, which hopefully will be linked soon to this video, go over and describe the process of doing it. The first thing you do is you basically build up your consensus for it, and the fastest way is just to click give me suggestions, which takes a few seconds to compute, and you get a quick suggestion. But what we really want to do is look at the more technical details. We have the consensus there, and we have a download button. So we click download, and actually, because this is the latest one, I'm going to mark it as latest consensus, etc. I've already downloaded it. And now we go back and do it with the one which is a prior consensus. So we end up with two sets of suggestions on the disk. And let me print this over to the screen. So what I have is latest on prior consensus. And these are CSV files, which means if you double click them, they will open up in Excel, whatever your spreadsheet program is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and click prior consensus first. And voila, there we have and we go back and we click latest consensus. Now these are in two different spreadsheets, and what we really want to do is put them into one spreadsheet. So the process is very easy. You click here, add a new one, and what we're going to do is we could call this spreadsheet prior. I'll put underscore in it just for the fun of the consensus. So now we have a sheet. Now I click over to the prior consensus here. I basically click, highlight everything here, do a Control C for copy, go back to the other spreadsheet right here and do a Control V for paste. And now I have both of them in the same workbook. Okay, next thing we have to do is a little bit more complicated. The fastest way to look up is by the modifier ID number, which is shown on the sheet. You could do it by the modifier name, but it is far easier doing it this way. Go over there, and now what we do is we are going to insert copy cell, which moves everything over one. Now, we have just MID in this spreadsheet, and we also go and do the same thing over here. And we do copy and insert copy. So, and the reason we do it is so that the next thing we do, which is Excel function, works very well, because we now have everything sitting where we should be for an easy lookup. So we have a mid there, and what we want to do is we'll go in and insert a column here. And what we're now going to do is go over here and type in VLOOKUP, which is a built-in function. We go and we point it to the mid column in there, as in what we want to look at. And now it says table array. And now we click on the other one, the prior consensus, and we just go and select everything that we're interested there. And it's copied there. And next we have the column number, which is a column number over here that we want to make use of, and it's column number 2 here, which is the comma 2, which is a priority here. And then we add in one little bit of important thing to add. and we put a false there, F-A-L-S-E. And now it will show, in this case, it will show NA. If I had actually, I'm just going to copy a couple down so you see that it actually works. Oops, just copy. And now is what I'm going to actually do is, instead of column 2, I'm going to pick column 1. Column 1. And column 1, if we copy down over the same one, what we'll have is we'll find the numbers are identical, or NA. NA means that this was not on the prior suggestion list. Why wasn't it on the prior suggestion list? Because it didn't impact any of the bacteria which were out of desired range on the prior one. So there was no interaction there. Things have changed in the microbiome. Some new bacteria, perhaps just a few of them, have now shown up as being significantly out of range, and this particular thing or these particular items are items where we have data on it and it impacts the bacteria, the new bacteria, which is not the same as the old bacteria. Slightly different bacteria are selected there, so it shows up, so it's on a new one, it's not on a prior one, and then in our case we see that. So what we can now do is saying, okay, let's go over to priority 2, which gives us the, column 2, which gives us the priority. And now we can go and we do a copy here, and now what we're going to do is we are going to go all the way to the bottom, which is something like 1800. Yes. Almost there. I think it was 1800. There we go. 1804, I was right. And now we see what the numbers are. So now you can go and compare numbers in this column with the numbers in this column and see whether or not they are still takes or not takes. For example, this one is currently a high priority. Last one, it was borderline. It was just a slight negative to it. Now it is emphasized. The next one was very high below. It's a little bit diminished now. Other cases, it goes from negative to positive, or in some cases, it may go from positive to negative. And we go all the way down the list so you can see all the differences. Generally, things which are less than what is the maximum here, anything less than a third of the highest one are fuzzy one way or the other. So I wouldn't be too concerned about here. But now you can go down and you can go all the way down and see what the differences are. And generally, why the numbers jump around is simply because we are picking different bacteria as priorities. And we only have data on some bacteria, so therefore some things will come in if any of the bacteria that is known to influence are there, and if none of the bacteria is known to influence are in your list to modify, the substance doesn't show up at all, which was in fact the case up here for the first three of them. None of them, the things which these three things impact were not on the should change list of bacteria. So that is why we have the difference. Okay, so voila, that is it in terms of being able to look at the detailed way of doing it. However, we do have one other option, and that is, if we go back to the page, we go over and go to the multiple samples, and we have consensus against multiple samples. So we can do click here and click here, and we can now combine them, which takes everything together, and you now have what is in agreement between both the last one and the current one. And if you sort by take count here, 8 and 8, these are things which are in absolute agreement between the two samples, which are, in other words, basically the preferred choice. And I will shortly be adding in a table up here, which is not there yet, but I'm about to code that, which will indicate the number which are in agreement or disagreement through the list. But however, do know we have 1,800 items listed. So we do have a good stack of items. So we expect some to be in disagreement and some not. And if you go to the very bottom, we have a bunch of items which are in agreement, we should avoid there. And you notice here we have 8 and here we have 7, which means that there's one of the set of suggestions. There was no opinion suggested for cholic acid for that suggestion, since it only shows up on 7 of the 8 suggestions. The last one, it has no opinion on it, a bunch more here. So the 8 and 7s are good. In this case, we have 1 which says no and 7 says yes. Again, it's a pretty clear thing to say. You should probably avoid it, and etc. So that's basically it. Again, for this Uber consensus, I'll be adding a little section here at the top indicating the number of matches, number of disagreements on there, just as a alternative for people doing things on the web on a mobile device such as a phone, where going and doing the Excel work is not so easy. But remember, the Uber consensus, if you have 2 samples in reasonably close proximity, is probably the best way to continue forward with the changes by the first suggestion of the first sample done to continue on for the second. Some things will drop off, which is fine. And the drop off is often because of different bacteria being selected or moving into or out of should change, plus the fact that we don't have comprehensive data on what to change. We have fragmentary data, so we are trying to do the best fit that we can. Okay, so that's basically it. Now you know how to do it. In terms of getting a detailed examination, you have to go over and do some magic in Excel, and you can actually go through it, and I can go and by just changing the number here, I can go and do anything else. For example, I'll do one more, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at this one and do a copy there to the screen, and now I'm going to go over here and paste, and now I actually have to make sure I change that to A1. And what I want to do is what? This was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take a look at 6. Let's see what column 6 says. So column 6, I put 6 there. And A1, A1. Okay, let me check to make sure I have the right one. How do I do it? Just put in 1 here, and I see I go up to A1, and what I should have actually had was A2. And that should be A2. Okay, and now if I go and change it to 5, we will get no matches here, but if I go down a bit further and just copy it down, oops, A6 over, okay, prior consensus, that should be, okay, we got a little bit, so it's A to L is what I should have there, and I'll go back up to here, and that should be A colon L, and there we have the numbers coming through. So again, there's a bit of fidgeting around. If you're comfortable with Excel, you can do it. If you're not comfortable with Excel, there's no easy solution. It becomes a good chunk of coding to replicate that on the web. And we'll go and mark this one the same way. So we now have comparison between the two, and you see what the numbers are. And go on. Again, the Excel is for those who are a bit on the nerdy side and who want to know all the details. So that's how I go about doing it.